everybody, and welcome to the Barcoding-Huddle. I'm your host, Jody Costa. I'm the VP of Marketing for Barcoding Incorporated. And Barcoding, who are we? We're a supply chain automation and innovation company helping organizations like yours become more efficient, accurate, and connected. And today we have a very special partner on with us for the Huddle, and it's one of my all-time favorite topics since joining Barcoding almost 14 years ago. So we are honored today to have our partner Zebra Technologies with us. Zebra Technologies helps organizations monitor, anticipate, and accelerate workflows by empowering their frontline and ensuring that everyone and everything is visible, connected, and fully optimized. Zebra's award-winning portfolio spans software to innovations in robotics, machine vision, automation, digital decisioning, and it's all backed by a 50-plus year legacy in scanning, track and trace, and today's topic, mobile computing solutions. With an ecosystem of 10,000 partners across more than 100 countries, Zebra's customers include over 80% of the Fortune 500. And Newsweek recently recognized Zebra as one of America's most loved workplaces and greatest workplaces for diversity. And if that wasn't enough, they're also on Fast Company's list of the best workplaces for innovators. Whew! As you can see, we have a great partner on the line with us today, and Barcoding and Zebra have a wonderful relationship. And I know that for our core audience and our customers, this is going to be a conversation you don't want to miss. So with that, I'd like to invite my panelists to join me on camera. So come on into the huddle. Hey, Eric.
Hey.
Hey, Carrie. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. So welcome to the Huddle. We're really excited today to talk about a concept around modern mobility, modern mobile computing. And I know that we have quite a few areas that we want to get into with our conversation. But just to get things started, I told you who I am, but I'd love to get some introductions. So Eric, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Happy to, it's an honor to join the Barcoding Huddle. And again, just like it's one of Jody's favorite topics, trust me, this is one of my favorite topics too.
Yeah, my favorite topic.
Here at Zebra, I get to focus on product strategy, focused around our mobile computing devices, fits really well to the topic, really focused on the life cycles of our current devices. I also get to focus on next generations, which is always voice of customer led, voice of partner led. So we're always listening to Barcoding, to all of our customers to say, hey, that next generation device to solve a customer challenge, to solve my problems, I need it to do X, Y, Z. I am all ears. That's when I start taking notes so that I can bring all that back across all of my feedback across North America, bring that into our engineering discussions and make sure that we're solving challenges.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you are the man, the myth, the legend, and we're happy to have you on the call with us today. Another legend in our midst, Carrie, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Eric made me everything that I am and more. So I'm Carrie Corbin, Vice President of Client Solutions at Barcoding. I have responsibility for products and services. So whether they're proprietary to Barcoding or working with partners like Eric at Zebra, we build solutions for our customers using value proposition and process people and technology approaches. Much like Eric, we listen to what's going on with our customers, where they're at in their transformation, and we build products and services that allow us to meet their needs. I have been on the customer side of the Eric Hilton approach to this. He has, all jokes aside, taught me a lot about this industry prior to me coming over to Barcoding. So really looking forward to having this conversation with him today.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining and for your leadership at Barcoding. So let's get into it. Mobility. I feel like, you type that into Google, you're going to get all kinds of different answers. So what are we really talking about today? Well, as any true fan of Barcoding knows, that first successful commercial scan of a barcode was back in 1974, right? And once barcoding was realized to be such a powerful technology, you had the rise of what we call mobile computer, but other people might call guns, scanner guns, bricks. If you're lucky, I think, Eric, they call them zebras.
If we're lucky.
Right? Handhelds, mobile devices, mobile computers, right? They kind of go by a lot of different names, but that rugged enterprise device that tool that's used to capture and track data. That's really what we're talking about today. And this layer of mobility infrastructure is really ubiquitous. It's a steadfast technology. It's been used across the board in a number of applications in supply chain. And I think most of our audience listening, unless you just stumbled upon us on YouTube, most of everybody has used a mobile computer. Today, of course, we have phones, but even in the retail or the warehouse environment, most folks are familiar with what we're talking about. So we've got this wonderful layer of technology that we almost take for granted now. And I want to start talking about, what do we mean when we say we need it to be modern? And I want to start with something, and this is why I was so excited about this conversation, is because when I'm in rooms with customers and at conferences, often when we talk about emerging trends in the supply chain, we're talking about things like robotics and AI, and we often don't talk about mobile computers or scanner guns, right? Are they a thing of the past? Like, should we even be having this conversation, right? Eric, since you're our guest, I'll let you start.
Yep. Absolutely, we should be having this conversation. And welcome to anybody that just stumbled in. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. But absolutely, we should be having this conversation. Yeah, Zebra's got an investment in automation, mostly customer-driven, customer-led, because we know that labor challenges, finding labor, retaining labor, that it's a challenge right now. And so augmenting those workflows to do more with the labor that we've got is critical. But it's really important to note that while sure, there's a percentage of work and of tasks that can be automated, very few actual full jobs, FTEs, could be completely replaced. It's a very small percentage. And so ultimately what we see is more of this co-working type of a solution, enabling our current workforce to work with automation, as opposed to completely replacing a workforce with automation. There's a big nuance there. And with that nuance comes, I still need to have my associates connected. I still need to have barcode scanning. I still need to have all those workflows automated and in the hands of a worker so that they can work with that automation.
Yeah, Gary.
I agree. I mean, I think when you talk about, the bricks and everything else, Eric and I used to joke around about the gladiators, the wearables that was like a full robotic suit, right? Now they're back of hand scanners and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, when we talk about, digital transformation and innovation, everyone's at a different place on that journey. And that's personal and professionally, right? There are people still using flip phones, and then there's people who get an upgraded smart device every time they roll out. It's the same thing with our customers. We talk to customers often that are still moving off of paper processes. It is a part of their journey to even get to a mobile device. So to take a customer who's never had a technology solution and walk them into full automation RFID, it's a stretch. It's a stretch to get the funding for it, and it's a stretch to understand what the ROI and the savings are. And so, the mobile devices continue to be, and I believe will always be, to Eric's point, a critical part of that ecosystem. And I know that, Jody, this is kind of where you're going to take the conversation, but it's not just a scanner anymore. It does so much more. And so in and of itself and by itself, the mobile device is going through its own digital transformation that allows it to be used in more functions and fashions within the four walls of a store or warehouse.
Yeah, I want to take that concept to Eric, back to Eric, to say, Carrie mentioned that a lot of people are in potentially different phases, like a lot of our listeners right now, maybe in different tracks of their journey. Do you have a sense from the Zebra perspective, like what that landscape of kind of mobility or mobile data capture looks like today? Maybe you could give us a window of what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. While we tend to talk a lot about automation, we hear a lot of really cool topics with automation and robotics and all these really cool things. The core of our business is still mobile computing. The core of our use cases and our customers' use cases, in many cases, there's still a green screen interfacing with an AS400 in the background, and it ain't broke. let's just
So
keep rolling with it.
customers shouldn't feel bad if they're in that spot.
Right, absolutely not. I mean, at the same time, we're talking about continuing that workflow and really enabling what else can we do with the compute power that's in our hands. And that's one of those conversations that Carrie touched on just a little bit is I've got this device and it used to be a task focused device. Now it's a connectivity strategy. And once I'm connected, once that associate is connected, what else can I do with that connection to continue driving efficiency, continue driving ROI?
Well, Carrie, is that what you've kind of seen? Like if you think about like the last maybe 10 years or 5 years, and then thinking ahead, like what are some of those major differences? I mean, if folks are, which we don't want them to feel bad, if they're still holding on to old stuff, but what has been some of the change that they should really be aware of, the reason we need to get to modern?
Yeah, so I'm going to steal Eric's connectivity strategy statement. So if you're in a call with me in the near future and I use it,
Where it came from?
will not give credit for it. No, I mean, something we worked on a few years ago, Eric and I did, and we're starting to see more customers move in this direction is, kind of the omni use of a handheld. So what else can I do with this device? And when you think about going from the old school kind of all they did was scan devices to something that has an operating system in it that allows for additional applications and allows for additional functions, the sky's kind of the limit. And so the fact that somebody can come in at the beginning of the day and use a device to clock in and do their tasks and send a message to their manager or call support, that is the journey kind of within the form factor of a mobile device that we're starting to see is and the other thing is as Android has rolled out, Android is on its second or third iteration, so we're starting to see some really cool things that Android is opening up and allowing us to do on the devices, which continue to drive productivity and speed of the use by our end users. So the ability to log into the device one time and it logs into all the other apps on the device. You don't think about the fact that it could take 5 minutes to log into everything you need to use in the morning versus 30 seconds to log in once and you're off to the races. And it's those little micro efficiencies that working kind of with Eric and Zebra and working with our customers, we can start showing efficiencies by getting to, a really well-honed and really well-configured device.
Yeah, I'd love to keep that going and hear, kind of maybe a couple examples of how Zebra kind of thought about that end user, so person, the human, right?
Yeah.
Using the device, wanting to become better at their job, wanting to do a better job. What are some of the things that you kind of innovated around from that perspective?
Yeah, and it's really important to know with this tool that I've got in my hands, technology, think about the technology curve of just the capabilities that we've seen. Some of the first mobile computers that we launched, decades ago, they were very task focused. They were very fit for their intended purpose. But the great thing about the proliferation of these devices and this technology to all of us as consumers has meant we get to ride some of that wave. We get to continue developing with Google around Android and what those next generations of Android are going to look like. We get to help make it more enterprise friendly. And thinking about a multi-user environment where Carrie touched on single sign-on. It's single sign-on. We do it on our devices personally all day long, but it's one device. It's my device. What happens when I've got 200 devices and any one of 200 users could pick up any one of 200 devices on a given day? It's those aspects that we continue to see growth in and our customers saying, I've got this phenomenal tool. What else can I do with it? Carrie mentioned time clock. What about a message of the day? Maybe I've got a safety briefing, or maybe I've got some capabilities to where now I want to be able to send that video message out and have everybody seeing the same video message, regardless of whether they were 5 minutes late because they got stuck in traffic or they missed their shift that day and so they came the next day. It doesn't matter. That video is there waiting for them, so they see the same information that everybody sees. In addition to that, we're seeing things like communication on the devices where think about, I want to be able to call an associate. I don't know where they are. I don't know what device they picked up today. Part of that single sign-on could be into an application that is voice telephony. And now I get the ability to simply call them or send them a message and drive their next best task, or even from a security perspective, alert that there's a fire in the building or alert that there's an emergency and let everybody know to evacuate, as opposed to finding a PA system and having to alert everyone. Now I don't have to deploy that PA system because ultimately I have the ability to communicate and send those messages to the associates with the devices that they already have in their hands.
Yeah, and I think one thing that that Zebra's done, and maybe we don't touch on it enough, is like the ergonomics of the devices. So I joked around about the Gladiator, but it was real. It was real, and it was big, and it was heavy, and employees were walking around with this wearable on, and they have a walkie-talkie on one hip and their keys on the other, and kind of all of this equipment. And over, the course of the last 10 years, it's not about the devices just getting smaller and the screen getting bigger and those types of things that we can work around with modernization, but it's also how many times do they have to move their wrist to do their scan? Taking a 2-finger ring scanner and shrinking it down to a single finger and making it lighter. It's the ability for, again, Eric, when you're talking about PA systems, even again, the walkie-talkies. So, the fact that an employee can now walk around with a single device, potentially a wearable printer, which you probably have the numbers, Eric, those have really taken off. The ability for somebody to have everything on their body, but it only being 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, you start talking about the safety and the health of your employees that comes from that. And employee satisfaction with labor numbers where they are. Employee satisfaction is critical, ensuring that our labor feels taken care of and safe and secure and heard. That all is driven by how we send technology out to them and get feedback from them, whether it's working or it's not. And, if a device gets hot while it's on the back of your hand, we have a problem.
Right.
And the things that Zebra has really done a great job, and Eric and the team he's on is listening to the feedback from the end users and figuring out, do we make it smaller? Do we shift it around? Can we drop it in a cradle? What different ways can we make this so that our end users feel safe and secure and heard when they're providing feedback on how to do their jobs better?
Yeah, you'll see a couple of things. You touch on ergonomics, and that's a really impactful transition. Everybody think back to 2009, 2010, when our personal phones, our consumer grade devices, they flipped from physical keys to all touch. And I was one of the staunch holdouts. Trust me, I wanted my physical keys. I had to have them.
I had to rip my BlackBerry out of my hands at work.
Exactly. I had to have the physical keys. But now with the proliferation, touchscreens have gotten a lot better since then. Capabilities, efficiencies have gotten a lot better. When we talk about employee retention and we talk about employee training, as we see a transient workforce and short term, where associates may want to work here for 6 months and then go jump across the street because there's better pay or there's better benefits or whatever, as they're bouncing back and forth, one, we got to train them up very quickly. The faster I can get them trained, the better. Number two, we want to retain them. And so ultimately, you'll see things from an ergonomics perspective that, sure, we've still got our MC class of device, the MC9 class with over 4.5 million MC9s out in the world. Trust me, customers still love those. They still love that tried and true, that trusted form factor. But we're seeing a huge shift toward all touch devices. And so purpose-built, enterprise-grade, all-touch devices that a user inherently, because they're so familiar with touchscreens in their personal life, they know how to use an all-touch device. We're always innovating and we're always focusing around that. And really, to the point that Carrie made around employee safety and efficiencies, if we can remove steps from an associate's workflow, if we can remove wrist actuations of being able scanning and then looking at a device and then scanning again and looking at another device, we're going to take a look at that. And we've come out with some devices, and Carrie and team, when she was still a customer, helped us prove this out. A simple ergonomic form factor change helped drive a 12% productivity increase and reduce the risk of any carpal tunnel or wrist strain. And so ultimately, all of those things come into play to make sure that we're using every possible advantage and analyzing every aspect of our devices to make sure that we're continuing to innovate and continuing to drive those efficiencies.
I think with labor kind of being that hot topic, we started to talk about, kind of the power of thinking through the ergonomics, and that may not be something that you have thought through for some time in your organization because you think of it as a scanner, right? But thinking about this as something that's part of that person, it's an extension of that person, right? But I also wanted, Carrie, you to touch upon, I mean, this is something that you and I have talked a lot about. How do we, that intersection of people and technology, right? The end user themselves, how do we enable that great experience? And I think we've been talking about retention and onboarding and training. Walk us through what Barcoding's been doing in concert with Zebra on how do we take advantage of some of the newer things that are out there to modernize that mobility layer for the benefit of those employees.
Absolutely. I mean, Eric mentioned, he said 2008, 2009, which seems like it was yesterday for me. Eric was probably in middle school when touchscreen phones came out, but I do remember I had to have a long conversation with our IT guys about getting rid of my BlackBerry and why I would never, touchscreens will never, ever be a thing of the future. They're going to back off of it. And here I am strongly encouraging people to go to them. And with some modernization of those devices, now it's the next iteration. And I will admit, I did not question the modernization piece like I did going from the hard click buttons to the touch screen, because I learned my lesson the first time. But the ability to take a screen and modernize it and not, if you remember the old screen, it was the F2 button could have 6 different functions depending on what screen you were on the device. And the ability to say, this is what it means on this particular screen for an end user. And so now you can cut training times by 20 to 30%. You're handing somebody a device, they've used a touch screen in their personal life, they understand kind of more of a soft front end, and you're kind of using very logical methodologies with it. When you're done, you hit the end button, not when you're done, you hit F2. And then when you're done on the next screen, you hit F5. And so, modernization and gamification are two of the ways that we're really, working with the labor force to encourage productivity, encourage the ability to train your employees up quickly across different jobs. So when you're short on labor, you can't hire someone to do just picking or just packing or just inventory. It's the ability to train them across the stack. So when you're looking at where you're at for the day from hitting productivity numbers, you can quickly move somebody from one set of tasks to another without having to do some extensive training. And that's where modernization really comes into it. And then, gamification is kind of a newer and really fun thing. And it's, not everybody is competitive. I'm not, haha. But, tapping into that competitive edge and whether it's individuals or, we had a really great forum with some customers last week, and we talked about it's sometimes team versus team, store or warehouse versus store or warehouse, region versus region. And you start thinking about some creative ways. You do a March Madness event where 2 or 3 different warehouses are competing against each other in a bracket, and you're using gamification to show the employees, how fast they're doing the work and where they compare to the other warehouse that they're competing against. But you can also start throwing some messaging out there like, great job, Jody, you hit 100% of what you were supposed to do for today, or your team has 0 quality issues for the day. And so it's hard for a supervisor and a manager to get around to everybody and give them that feedback. And so gamification is not just breeding a lot of our competitive edge, but also a way to remind the employees that they're valued and they're cared about, and we see what you're doing and you're an important part of the team when there's those moments when a supervisor or a human can't get to them during their workday.
Yeah, and it can be super simple of a step that can be taken that could drive efficiency or could drive that gamification. You know, I've got one example of a customer who their login screen, they were training their users every time they walked in the door to type a specific 17 character login screen. And they had to, you know, F1 enter, F3 enter, number 7, it was this long drawn out 17 characters. With a modern device, we've made a soft button on the device that simply said log in.
Yeah.
And the training associated with just logging into the device, you know, instead of memorizing this 17 character string, just press log in and go about your business. And the number of times they mistyped that 17 characters, you know, obviously that went away. They didn't have to worry about those mistypes or those. So just the efficiency of getting those workers, bring them in, training them up quickly, you know, press enter, press home. If you need to go home, press home. Something super simple like that can be one step in that direction. And then to Carrie's point, we're seeing, you know, let's tap into that competitive edge and, you know, future-proofed platforms enable those future-proofed solutions, enable those future solutions to be able to implement things like that down the road.
Yeah, and you know, you make a good point. When I think about what we rolled out in our IntelliTrack platform with our Verify app, you know, our software team does a nice job of not saying all of our customers behave in the same way. So our Verify application allows for a 4-digit PIN and password, just a 4-digit PIN. We can do single sign-on directly into the customer's system. So the ability to kind of talk to the customer, what's best for you? Is that 4-digit PIN something you want us to pull from your system? Do you want them to have a password? And once they enter whatever that level of security they want on the front end, it does an auto check out of the device to the end user. So they don't have to take another step. The device is now assigned to that person for the life cycle of the day, which is solving another issue a lot of our customers have, which is around device loss. And you know, where they are at the end of the day and checking them back in. So we've used some of that gamification and that modernization ourselves to ensure that we're meeting some customer needs, but in a way that can be adjusted based on, you know, what that specific customer needs, really by location and by device.
Yeah, I'm convinced that, and this was something that you and I worked on previously, there are no two warehouses that are the same. There are no two companies or two customers or two deployments that are 100% identical. And so given that, and why we love standardization, one of the great things about a modern mobility solution and these modern developments is agility. Just the sheer agility to be able to implement what's right for our customers at that time. And if that changes, the platform can support a different modality or a different solution.
It's a great call. That's where the software on these new devices really comes into play. Like what is your, and you know, this is where we partner really well, and something that, you know, Barcoding, you know, has built our brand on is, what's the customer experience? What's your process? What is your experience of your people? And then we get to technology solutions, and with the software and the ability to build the configurations differently across sites, across warehouses, across customers, it allows us to give a custom experience based on that feedback from the end users.
So I want to make sure to amazing conversation. Just to kind of recap some of what you heard, the gamification and modernization that we're talking about happens on the device. Those soft buttons, this is a user interface design change, right? So instead of seeing a design forward that has the green screen, the design that you'll see is very user friendly, right? And that's really the change, but it's not a change necessarily in software. It's just in the user interface to that software, which I think is an important point. But it's also that gamification that's real time, that's with the person versus a leaderboard that someone has to go out of their way to check. So all these things are driving us back to how do we tie that technology and that person more closely together in order to all kind of find the numbers and the success that we're looking for. I'd love to throw kind of a little bit of a counterpoint out, pivot our conversation slightly. You know, it sounds great, right? I think that we all know that if we had the time, the budget, we want all those modern devices, we want all the things. But someone might say, you know, one, how do I know when it's the right time? And why is it so bad to have end-of-life devices in the mix? You know, what's the big deal? Carrie, I see you smiling, so I'll start with you.
I'm smiling because I remember years ago having a conversation with a couple of people from Zebra, and I'm like, well, if you didn't make your printers so they wouldn't keep them for 15 years, right? And so, you know, the number one answer to what's wrong with end-of-life devices is security. And so when we talk about the security and you know, we kind of went over the safety and security of our employees. Now let's talk about the safety and security of the network and the data more so than the network, right? So a network being penetrated happens, it probably has happened 50 times since we've been on this call. Somebody is trying to get on the network and hack. It's when they get through and they get access to your data and they get access to your customers' data. And that's a big focus for us, is we want to make sure our customer feels the experience that we're giving our customer. And that is included in the security and safety of their personal data. When you think about a warehouse and putting an order in and having something shipped to your home, that is data that's inside the four walls of our customers. And so end-of-life devices is a penetration point if they're not secure and there's no patching and OS upgrades done to those devices. If we all know that, the hackers all know that. And they know where these points of potential entry into a network are. And so that's the criticality of not only getting to, you know, getting off of end-of-life devices, but once you get to the newer platform and the newer operating system, ensuring that you're working with us and Zebra on OS upgrades and security patching pushes. And I'm here to tell you, it's not easy and it's hard work. And it's particularly now that these devices have apps on them and making sure that the apps will continue to work on the upgraded device. It's something that we have spent a lot of time working with our internal team on to be sure when we do these operating system and security updates, we're not impacting our customer negatively. We're being very disciplined about doing so. It is a critical part of ensuring that our customers remain up and running. It is something on the minds of every CIO. Our CEO says all the time, no one wants to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal for a security hack. And it's the truth. And the data that we have in our IntelliTrack platform helps us build roadmaps for our customer and make sure what they have and what they're using is safe and secure.
Eric, you know, clearly seems like it might be a bad idea to hold on to these old devices. But still, how do I know? What are you guys seeing in the Zebra side? How are you helping organizations know when it's the right time to make a change?
Yeah, there's certainly a delicate balance between sweating the asset for as long as I can, and there's no self-destruct button in the device. It's going to keep working. It's going to keep turning on. But you know, Carrie touched on the biggest. When I look at it as, is it a threat or is it an opportunity? And in this case, it's actually both. Just the sheer creation of the chief security officer position. You know, many of our customers have CISOs now that have their whole focus is security, and data security is by far their most important task. It's probably what keeps them up at night in terms of, I don't want to end up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Right.
And because it's never a good place to be. And so you know, there's a delicate balance there around long life cycle, which we always offer. A minimum of a 3+3 life cycle commitment, 3 years of sellable life, 3 years of supportable life, all the way up to a 10-year life cycle, 5+5. And so we've always focused on that life cycle, but we actually initiated that life cycle from a break fix perspective of being able to ensure that we could fix devices and repair broken screens and things like that. But very quickly, we recognized that our customers were coming to us saying, hey, what about security patches? And so now the entire life cycle of that device includes security patches from Zebra. So even after we've stopped selling a device, even after Google has stopped supporting that operating system, we pick up security patches for the entire sellable and supportable life of that device. And we make them available to our customers via a simple support contract or a number of different routes to get those. And so we recognize that yes, there is that threat out there, and we always offer optional upgrades. Our customers can take it when they need to. They can plan their migration from one major OS to the next. But really, it comes down to the flip side of that is the opportunity of once those customers who were those staunch holdouts like Carrie that wanted their fixed keys. They love that MC9090. Trust me, I love it too. It's a great device. But at the same time, once they get over to a more modern platform, I typically see customers and their eyes open of, oh, I can do this with it. Well, can I find a lost device that got lost in the warehouse somewhere or that got lost in the retail store? How can I go out there and find it and recover it? What, can the device do a diagnostic and tell me if it's broken or not? Can it act as a push to talk, as a replacement for those radios? It's really once customers start down that path, then it very quickly snowballs into all these additional capabilities. And that's really where, we always focus on the outcome or the challenge that our customers are facing. It's very quick and easy to just say, hey, look, here's the new device, here's the new thing, and here's the new widgets, and here's why it's better than the previous. But at the end of the day, a device is a part of a total solution. A device with services, with support, with go live and stay live services from Barcoding, with IntelliTrack, all of those things come together. Think of them as tools in a toolbox to develop that right fit for the solution for the customers.
Yeah. And I as Eric was talking, I was thinking back when I was on the customer side, and I was there when this Windows CE to Android change happened, right? So I was the person going, you want me to do what? And going out and talking to the end users saying, it's really great, we're going to do this thing and we're going to move from those to these and it's going to be awesome. And they're like, but why? The devices work, right? And so it's having those conversations. And one of the long conversations we have with a lot of customers now, and I was probably one of the first people to ask the question, was you're cutting my device life in half. So now my refresh budget kind of does this instead of doing this, right? I had 10 years to refresh a device. Now you're telling me I have 5. And it has allowed us at Barcoding, working with Zebra, to start putting together ways to not dig into capital, but to start talking about how do we make this a leased option. And a lot of people do this in their personal lives. You go in, you turn your cell phone in, you get another one for 2 years, you have a monthly charge and you get the phone and services and everything that's wrapped around that. You enter a username and password and it downloads your configuration and you're off to the races. We have a very similar solution to that using Android Zero Touch Enrollment, our IntelliTrack platform, and something we call Rapid Enroll. I'll send you the device, you log into it, your company's configuration is on that device. You lease it from us with services for 5 years and a monthly charge. And at the end, I take it back and I give you something new, right? So it's the shorter life cycle at first. Again, when I was on the customer side, I'm like, finance isn't going for this. Like, how are we going to have this conversation and make it make sense? And Zebra and Barcoding have found a way to say, there's multiple ways to do this so that it's affordable. And it's for a company, kind of, Jody, going back to your initial question, if I'm on paper today or I'm on end of life devices and I haven't quite bought into this, I can sign a 2-year lease for 5 devices and bring them slowly. I think we when we talk about technology, a lot of times we're like, oh, I got to buy 10,000 new devices. You can buy 50. You can have a picking area in your warehouse, and you're going to move the picking group over first and get them settled and get them modernized maybe, and then go to your packing team. Or taking, Eric, we did a lot of work where we went to tablets on forklifts, right? And so taking that specific use case and moving it to prove to yourself why it's a good idea, but to also, more importantly, and we keep kind of going back to this on this conversation, your end users have to buy into it.
100%.
And if your end users aren't buying into whatever this new thing is that you're rolling out, you're as good as done. And to Eric's point, they're going to go across the street to somebody else and pick up technology that they're comfortable with.
It's just, there is so much that's connected here, right? I think that's the other thing that I just always love about these conversations. Like, I started this like, oh, we're going to talk about mobility, and then we're talking about all these other factors, including human factors like change management, right? And Eric, to something you said, there's a book called The Technology Fallacy, and they talk about hidden affordances. So once you put in a piece of technology and people start using it, you will discover affordances that you never planned for, right? And that's a super powerful notion when it comes to trying to figure out, how do you start to maximize investments in this new modern mobile technology? You almost have to account for the fact that once you put these into people's hands, those what ifs, can I do a whatever, those should start rolling. And I think what I'm hearing from both of you is that those are questions that a lot of them can be answered, maybe that people didn't realize, right, Eric? Like, these things that are coming up, they can be answered today.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole suite of tools, whether it's built by Zebra or built by Barcoding, or we've also got independent software vendors that we work with constantly that are just solving challenges. And that's really where we start and end almost every discussion is, what challenges are our customers facing? What can we be working on so that we can be a better partner to our customers, so that we can deliver that solution? Because ultimately, this is a part of what our customers do on a regular basis. This is not their entire, in many cases, not their entire job. This is many cases not their entire focus. They've got other tasks, other projects that they're working on. And if we can simplify some of that, that's really where our focus is.
Yeah, well, they don't want you to think about whether the technology is going to work or not.
Yeah,
I think, Jody, you make a great point. Eric and I had a use case a few years ago. I was floored at how much a warehouse spends on a walkie-talkie system. If you look into it, like when the numbers came back from the operation, Eric and I were both like, wait, what? Get it up and running, get everybody a walkie-talkie, make sure it's supportable, right? This is another piece of technology that if it stops working, you're impacted on the floor. Right. And it's another phone call to another vendor for support. And so, we walked the push-to-talk solution that Zebra has onto the devices. And when you looked at the return on investment, for existing sites, they had already spent the money on the walkie-talkie system. So over time, it was just about not refreshing that. So there was a roadmap that we were able to put together. But when this customer started new sites up, they didn't have to, that extra spend wasn't there. And it was a matter of just having a conversation with the end users and saying, like, are you willing to tell us how much you paid for that? And is it a technology that you want to use? And so again, like, this is where Zebra's done a great job listening and rolling out software that meets those little needs. So you're talking about employee safety, and you're talking about not having an extra piece of equipment, and you're talking about supportability. Barcoding wants to be the phone call that you make, and anything and everything that you're doing from a mobile device, we are going to be the people who figure out how to solve that. So you can go do your job instead of worrying about what's going on with the technology.
Oh, so I feel like I'm gonna steal that for some sort of marketing campaign. So, you know, you'll all get my emails and you see that, but I know, honestly, we could talk, we could talk for hours. We could probably talk all day. But maybe people don't have all day on YouTube. Maybe they do. I know some people watch YouTube for 8 hours. Maybe they'd want to watch us for 8 hours. Not so sure about that, but Eric, I wanted to kind of start to close us off with also from the Zebra perspective. So you guys are at the forefront, you're leading. Talk to us a little bit about what we can look forward to, what you're seeing, maybe whatever you can share with our audience. Get excited.
Well, first and foremost, Zebra invests roughly 10% of our top line revenue back into the company, into investment. So you're going to continue to see device launches and net new form factors and new refreshes of current devices that we know and love that have been flagship devices for decades. You're going to continue to see that focus. But what I can commit is it will always be voice of customer driven. It will always be in acknowledgement of helping our customers interact with their ops teams and their IT teams, their infrastructure teams, and their partners, and all of those aspects of, you know, it's gotta make sense for everybody. It's gotta make sense for the individual sites. They've got to recognize an ROI, because in many cases the sites are the ones that are paying for it. It's on their P&L to do the refresh. And so we want to replace that security risk, but we also want to paint a picture of a smoother, more efficient operation, or capabilities around devices to be able to do more with them than just the task that they're intended for. So we're continuing to enable more and more of those capabilities along the way. You'll see things, and you have seen things with device launches, you know, 5G and Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E and private 5G. Huge opportunity around private 5G. Historical Wi-Fi only environments, or historical areas that were really difficult to light up Wi-Fi coverage in, we're now able to implement private 5G on band 48 and band 77 in the 5G spectrum. Those things allow us to light up legacy areas that were really difficult. It just ultimately, the toolbox of solutions is only getting bigger. And so ultimately, mobility assessments, or QBRs or BBRs, or strategic sessions where we all sit down together and just say, you know what, here's the challenges we're facing. Here's our current situation. Here's what our fleet looks like. Odds are we're going to be able to identify the right solution, which may be leveraging what you've already purchased, which may be saying, you know what, that whatever device you've got deployed, it's a great device and it's got plenty of life left in it. Let's see if we can maybe add something to it. Let's see if there's a tool that's available to you already on the device that may solve that challenge. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're always focused on.
I love that. And Carrie, from the barcoding perspective, maybe just give us a little tidbit from your seat of what you're most excited about when you kind of think ahead when it comes to the future of mobility.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much right around just taking what's currently there, and Eric touched on it. That's kind of where I stuttered, was Eric touched on it. And we know that we're listening to the customer experience, both with Zebra and them providing us that input, but also the conversations we're having with our customers, either through the barcoding business reviews, or you know, events that we hold or go to, or just having one-on-one conversations with our customers, and understanding, you know, if one customer has this problem, another customer that looks like them likely has this problem as well. And so what I'm really proud of with our solution teams is we do go in with that process people technology. We do go in with tell us the top 5 things that your end users would say makes them have a bad day when it comes to technology. And we have, through end user experience exercises that Jody and I will lead, where we're kind of going in and we're not trying to sell anything, we're just having a conversation and we want to understand what's going on. We have the ability to build roadmaps. So, mobility, we kind of led this with, it's the founding product of all things barcode, and it's to the left of a digital transformation, but it's also the foundation of a digital transformation. And the fact that we can take that and build upon it and do things I can do RFID with a handheld before I have to implement a full-blown RFID solution. So the fact that we can have solution and value prop conversations with our customers, and that starting with what they currently have in their hands, and not leading with, you got to buy a bunch of new stuff for a lot of money. You can use what you have today. Let's grow on that, and then start showing how you go from the left to the right of your digital transformation, is what really excites me about where we're at Barcoding. We have products and services that we have built internally, and we support. IntelliTrack platform is everything asset management and a whole lot more than that. It is, in my mind, one of the things I want my customers logging into the minute they get into the office in the morning, to see on their dashboards where they're at from the analytics that we're able, and insights we're able to provide on their devices, all the way across to partner solutions that we build with Eric and the Zebra team around, utilizing our partners to fill in the pieces that we don't do internally, but we have these strong partnerships to build an overall solution. And so I'm just really excited about where our team's going, and kind of using that whether it's a handheld, a tablet, a wearable, a printer, any of those kind of early technologies, and using those as the backbone and foundation for the future of our customers, and really getting that feedback from the end users to drive their digital transformation.
Oh, it's so well said. And, that's what I think, that's a great place to kind of close up, in the sense that, the mobility, I teasingly started calling it, the scanner gun and the brick and all the things. It's part of your whole ecosystem, right? It is connected. So if you're starting to make decisions on new technologies, you've got to also think about the mobility that exists in your infrastructure today, because everything is connected. And I think that's where particularly barcoding can really be an asset for you, because we sit in the middle, because we're an integrator, because we have such strong relationships with Zebra, and other partners, right? We can help you figure out all these dependencies and intricacies and connectivity pieces. We can help put that together. So, wow, amazing. I'm still actually digesting all the things that I heard today. Feel free to rewatch this, out there, but really appreciate, Eric, Carrie, both of your times today. We'd love to hear from you. So if you've got questions, or you've watched this and you've digested it and you're like, gosh, I really want to bring these people in to talk to me about my unique situation, we want to help. So just hop on over to barcoding.com. There's a quick contact us, happy to help you out. If you want to email me directly, I'm happy to do that as well. Jody Costa at barcoding.com. But yes, barcoding, we are here to help. That's the major message here. And with our partner Zebra, we really think the future is bright. Follow, subscribe, do all the things so you stay on top of everything. That's great. Now, I don't know, do you guys know that the huddle always ends with a question that you don't know is coming?
I do now.
Okay. Well, I as I was sitting here listening to your wonderful conversation, I like to come up with something on the fly. And it dawned on me that, the first successful scan of a barcode was in Troy, Ohio. And I thought, Ohio, that seems to be a common thread. I wonder, could you both share maybe something that you love about Ohio, or a fun fact that you know about Ohio outside of the barcode story? Carrie, I'll start with you. What do you love about Ohio?
One thing I love about Ohio is Eric Hilton lives in Ohio. That's one of the things I love about Ohio. Born and raised there, moved south 3 years ago. So one can say that I'm super biased on Ohio. I am a fan. I also love that about Ohio. I raised a family in Ohio, so I think Ohio gets a bad rap, but it's overall, it's an amazing place. And all jokes aside, my time in Ohio led me to a relationship with Eric. And, over the last eight or so years, we've been able to really build a lot of great things together. So my heart is in Ohio, even though my body is in Charlotte.
Eric, how about you? What do you want to share with us about Ohio?
Yeah, let's be very clear. I specifically live in Troy, Ohio. So that's maybe because this is where the first barcode was scanned, maybe not. I'll let you decide.
Yeah.
And noteworthy, while it was a grocery store at the time, it's now a liquor store. Let's be very clear about that. The brick and mortar is still there, but it is a liquor store, not a supermarket.
Still scanning barcodes though.
They are still scanning barcodes. So doing a great job of it too. No, I love Ohio. It's a phenomenal place to live. I went to school here, met my lovely wife here, and I was given the opportunity to stay here and stay together, or not. And so I chose staying here and staying together. And we've got 3 phenomenal kids that we are just thrilled to be here, to be in Ohio. And yeah, there's a special soft spot for all of my Ohio-based customers, because it's really easy logistically to travel. Not that I won't travel anywhere, but shoot, you give me an Ohio site to visit, I'm signing up.
Well, go Ohio. I knew that you guys would appreciate that last minute conversation. I in fact just celebrated the life of a great aunt who passed at 102 in Ohio, outside of Cleveland. So have ties there myself. This little conversation, this huddle was not brought to you by the Ohio Tourism Board. It was brought to you by Zebra Technologies. So once again, thank you, Zebra. We really appreciate you being here with us. And Eric, Carrie, insights were fantastic today. Can't wait to learn more. And once again, subscribe, like, barcoding.com, and we'll see you on the next huddle.
Thank you very much. See ya.